Okay, quick question, just so I know who is in the room. How many of you guys are in high school? Okay, how many of you guys are in college? How many of you are in middle school or under? All right, okay, cool, awesome. So, biggest disclaimer number one, my friend over here. What was your name? You were doing a great job in presenting. I saw a lot of back and forth between the group. In this kind of way, if there's any questions that you guys have throughout, that's a little bit easier for me to kind of answer as you guys have. Okay. So initially, when I was asked to come and talk to you guys, I thought that we were just going to do literally a Q&A. But I kind of thought about what I wanted to share with you guys today. Kind of wanted to talk to you about like how I ended up at my current position, what my path has been towards doing vascular surgery, and some of the big lessons I've learned along the way. And then we'll open it up to some question and answer at the end. Sounds good? Okay. So my name is Daniel Han. I am 42 years old. I know. I have no idea what that wow means, but that makes me sound terrible, feel terrible. But I currently am a professor of surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm the chief of vascular surgery at one of our Mount Sinai hospitals. Do you guys know what vascular surgery is?
No, we just Googled it.
Yeah?
It's surgery on the arteries and lymphatic vessels.
Okay, perfect. Well, that was great. Then I have nothing else to share. So vascular surgery is blood vessels in the body. Everything in the head is neurosurgery. Blood vessels in the heart is cardiac surgery, and all the blood vessels elsewhere in the body is vascular surgery. If you guys ever gone to the bodies exhibit, so this thing is like the whole human body is full of blood vessels that go to all the different organs, the fingers, things like this. This one, have you guys ever heard about the bodies exhibit? So if you have a chance to go to something called the Bodies Exhibit, they have one in DC. Sometimes they have it in New York. It's pretty awesome. The way they made this is actually pretty gruesome. So they took some cadavers, so dead bodies, and then they drain all the blood out of it and fill it with a chemical cast. And then once that's solidified, they use an acid that essentially dissolves all the skin, muscle, and bone, so that the only thing that's left is the thing that's in the body. Really gruesome if you think about it, but that's how they made it. But it gives you an idea that every single organ in your body requires blood circulation in order for you to live and for that to live. Now, different things can happen to blood vessels. They can get clogged, and in which case we will either use a balloon to open things up, or in cases that you can't use a balloon. Does this have a pointer? No. So if you look on the bottom right, you can sew a bypass. I don't know if you ever hear about bypass surgeries, but that typically means that if there's a blockage in the blood vessel somewhere, you sew another conduit so that the blood can go around that. So we do that kind of surgery. Sometimes we clean the blood vessel. This is, sorry if you guys, I know you guys just did, but so this is if you look on the left,
That's like the fucking kind.
yeah, that's you are meant for surgery. If you guys are, so this is a blood vessel that's in the neck that's going to the brain. This is the carotid artery, and when it gets clogged, patients can have a stroke. So sometimes we'll open that blood vessel, and that picture on the right is the kind of plaque that we take out. That's like the all the hamburgers that people have eaten over the years. That's what that builds up inside like a body, and then if that shuts the blood vessel down, the patients have a stroke. So it's kind of cool. Sometimes we have to get creative, and if there are blood vessels that get completely clogged that you can't actually open, then we have to think about different ways to get blood from one way to the other. So that picture on the right, that's the heart in the middle, and all those lines on the side are, we connect those plastic tubes. So in order to get the blood from the heart down to the legs, we have to sew arm blood vessels down to the leg blood vessels so it can go around and come all the way around. So it's kind of fun and kind of entertaining. The blood vessels can become aneurysms, or they become big, in which case we have to take the aneurysm out and sew things on. And then sometimes they are touching tumors, so sometimes we have to take those things out. So this is kind of what we do. Other reason why I like vascular surgery is because nowadays we come up with, so this is how we traditionally would, the kind of incisions we will make for our patients. Big incisions where you have to open the patients up, so you can imagine that their recovery is a little bit rough. Part of the reason why I like vascular surgery, if any of you guys are like techies into technology, nowadays we come up with minimally invasive methods to go ahead and fix the aneurysms and not kind of open the patient's body the same way that we used to. So in this kind of patient, rather than opening their body this way, you can put in these stents through two small incisions in the groin, and the patients go home one day after surgery versus almost a week after surgery. So the outcomes are very different. So this kind of area, like the biomedical engineering perspective, is getting better and better. This is why I went into vascular surgery. My path, in 2006, I graduated from Cornell. I was a chemistry major. From 2011, I graduated from Mount Sinai School of Medicine. It took me 5 years because I did 1 year of research. I was in vascular surgery residency for 5 years, and then for the past 9 years, I've been at Mount Sinai. So by the time that I finished my training, I was 33 years old, which I know to you sounds old, but looking back, that was very young. So if you look at this timeline, I've been almost 19 years at Mount Sinai, which is kind of crazy. Almost half my life has been the same place. And I will tell you that my entire path has not necessarily gone the way that I had envisioned. Like, this is where I am now. I'm very happy with where I am now, but it's not initially what I thought was, what's going to be my path. These are the different hats I've worn throughout my career so far. I was a Cornell University undergrad admissions interviewer. I sat on the admissions committee for the Mount Sinai School of Medicine for a few years. I was a director for the surgery clerkship, which means all medical students have to go through a surgical rotation. So I ran that for about 5 years. And then currently I'm the program director for our vascular surgery residency and fellowship program. So I've seen a lot of applications throughout my career, and we've selected students at a couple different levels. So later on when we have Q&As, I'm happy to answer any kind of questions that might regarding all of this. But this is the biggest lesson I want to give away. Life does not go according to plan. Let me ask you guys here, how many of you guys are planners? Okay, and how many of you guys are more go with the flow? What are you? More go with the flow? Okay. So, let me just see. How many are go with the flow people? Basically all the boys, okay. And how many people are planners? Okay, all right, cool. So by nature, I'm a planner. No question about it. Everything in my life is I make a plan. If I'm gonna go to college, make my checklist, do this major, get this grade, get these scores on the test, and then I should get into this kind of school. But according to that plan, my path would have been extremely different. I think I definitely would have ended up in different kind of positions, and nothing in my life has gone according to the way I kind of envisioned. If I look at this plan, Cornell University, I was happy with it. Now I'm very happy with the fact that I graduated. It's not the school that I wanted to go to. I definitely didn't think I was going to apply into chemistry. You see that it took me 5 years to graduate medical school. I did not plan on taking the 1 year of research, but I ended up doing it. And then vascular surgery, I had no idea, in the same way that you guys had no idea what it was, I had no idea what vascular surgery was going into medical school, and by no means did I thought I was going to go into that specialty. And I also didn't think I was going to stay in one place for the last 19 years of my life. I didn't really understand why, whenever things don't go according to plan, part of you is always like, I must have set a bad plan. I must have made something wrong within my actual path. And maybe that's the reason I didn't get the result that I wanted. Do you guys ever feel that way? Yeah? If you guys set a plan, if I do this, this should be the result. But oftentimes it is not, and you wonder if there's something wrong with the plan that you have. And I didn't really understand it until I became a vascular surgeon, actually. So in vascular surgery, this is one of the things that I was taught when I was going through residency. If you do the surgery perfectly, everything technically perfectly, it will work sometimes, which is a very kind of weird thing to think about, right? If you do the surgery perfectly on a patient, that patient should do perfectly in terms of their outcome. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We've done a lot of, so this picture that you see on the side, that's called the TAMB thoracoabdominal stent graft. Mount Sinai, we were one of the first people to get this technology, and we were able to bring it to patients who had some thoracoabdominal aneurysms that we had to treat, and sometimes they go really well. And one of the very first ones that we did at Mount Sinai, we ended up in the news for because we got this patient who was really sick, and then went back home for Mother's Day and was able to survive Mother's Day with the patient. So we're very happy with that, and we're like, oh, this is perfect. This is the answer to everything. We did the same exact surgery with the same exact steps on a patient 2 days afterwards because we thought we had solved everything. It's going to go great. That patient ended up paralyzed, and to this day cannot walk as a result of the surgery that we did. Within vascular surgery, and actually anything in medicine, there's no such thing as surgery without a complication rate. Everything has some sort of complication rate or something that does not go right. We say that there's a 10% risk of someone getting paralysis with the surgery. So what I'm trying to say is if you do it perfectly, it will work sometimes. The outcome is not within your control. The result is not something that you can control. This is what you can control. You can control your actions. You can control the process. You can control your preparation for whatever you're going to do. You can put in how much effort you put into a certain activity, but you do not control the outcome. And when I look back at the things that have been from my path about where I got into school, what kind of things I've been doing, I definitely think that this is 100% true. The opposite is also true. If you do it perfectly, it will work sometimes. But if you do it poorly, it will never work. You know, if I went into surgery and did some sort of operation and it was terrible, like it's bleeding out everywhere and I just closed the patient up, there's no situation when all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh my gosh, that worked out much better than I expected. You know, that will never happen. So it will always be prepare for the surgery, do everything that you think to the best of your ability, and then you have to accept the outcome for whatever the result is because it's out of your control. So we often try to differentiate people between planners and for people who are going with the flow, but really, honestly, you have to do a little bit of both. You have to have the ability to think and plan and prepare to the best of your ability and put in your efforts, but when different outcomes are coming, you have to be able to change and adapt and go with the flow, whatever is coming along. Does that make sense? Yeah. Find what excites you. One of the things I think people were asking me was like, when you're thinking about your career, how did you end up as a vascular surgeon? Once again, I'm going to go back. I had no idea what vascular surgery was, but you are going to run into different, so you might have an idea. Like, let me ask you, what do you want to be? What do you want to be right now? Perfect. That's okay too. Does anyone have an idea what they want to do in their career? What do you want to do? Physician assistant. Okay. What do you want to be?
An author.
A what?
An author.
Author? Okay. Man, so that's awesome. So you guys have an idea what you want to do. When I started medical school, I wanted to be a cardiologist. I wanted to be a doctor who took care of their hearts. I thought this is what my passion was. My dad has some cardiac conditions. You know, so I'm like, this is what I want to do for my career. This is what my plan is. When I set my 3 to 5 year plan, I set a plan so that I can become a cardiologist. But you have to keep your minds open. This is Dr. Marin. He's the chair of surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital, and I encountered him in my first year of medical school because he came and gave a lecture for anatomy, and he was an inspiring gentleman. He is a world-renowned physician who, that stent grafts that I showed you, he's the first one to do it in the United States almost 20 years ago at this point, and he's like a world-renowned guy. He's at Mount Sinai Hospital. And he became a strong mentor kind of figure. Speaking with him, I went to go shadow him, and he's the one that said, I know you want to think about cardiology, but look into vascular surgery. He's a vascular surgeon. So he's like, look into vascular surgery, come check it out and see whether or not you like it. That's where my 1 year research came from, because I was like, this is not my plan. I have no idea what vascular surgery is, but here's a guy who told me I should look into doing vascular surgery. So let me take an additional researcher and find out more about the specialty. And he altered the change of my career completely in that role. Now he's a good friend. He was at my wedding, and I see him on a regular basis. That's my beautiful wife. But he almost single-handedly changed the trajectory of my career and what I've been doing for the rest of my life at this point. We started off by saying life does not go according to plan. I do want to put the caveat that life does not go according to your plan. There is a plan. And if you look back, and if I look back at the kind of how I've ended up at my current situation, everything like kind of makes sense, but only when you look back. When you're looking forward and when you're thinking about how things are going to go, what school you want to end up at, what major you want to do. Like, you might have an idea in your mind, but it is not a complete idea that's formed yet. Only when you look back does everything make sense. So if I look back at everything that I've done, I did not really want to be at Mount Sinai, I'll tell you. The school that I wanted to go to was Columbia Medical School. I had a good friend of mine who was a upperclassman who ended up at Columbia. That's where I wanted to go. But the Columbia University Medical School does not have the same kind of vascular surgery presence. So like, there is no Dr. Marin there. I would never encountered him when I actually went to if I went to that medical school, I'm almost 100% sure I'd be a different specialist at this point. I talk about how I've been at Mount Sinai for 19 years at this point. 20 years is kind of wild because the first job I was actually going to get was at Emory down in Georgia. I had a job offer from Emory, and really at the last moment, the contract kind of fell through, and I ended up staying at Mount Sinai. But I think about kind of my life if I was down in Georgia and not necessarily in this area. I'm showing a picture of my family here because this is where I met my wife. This is where we have our kids. It's where we end up seeing our family on a weekly basis. And it just would be completely different in a way that I think would be extremely different. Life does not go according to your plan, but God certainly has a plan. And I think it just becomes so apparent. And one of the ways that he does it is by, and I totally believe in this, is that he puts different people in your life. Like you end up encountering, meeting, speaking with people that is just, that you didn't necessarily expect, that open doors and close doors for you. So some of you guys are in high school, some of you guys are in college, some of you guys will be going to these areas. It's one of those things that people talk about. Networking is like probably the most important thing, much more important than your grades, much more important than your scores. Who you meet and who you interface with, they will open doors or close doors for you. Different people that you meet are going to be, and I truly believe that God is putting some of those people in your life for that specific reason. Kind of a crazy to think about, but it also, in the same way, God may put you in someone else's life so that you can influence them in a similar kind of way. I honestly, like, the fact that I'm speaking at a church in front of you guys like this is kind of weird for me. But, like, I'm happy to come and share things because in the same way that Dr. Marion might have changed my trajectory, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. Like Hayne, the fact that he's here, you guys are always here on a regular basis. God put them in your life so they can have an influence for you as well. These are my current surgery residents. On the top left, they are my current residents at the moment. These are the ones who've graduated that now, we see on a more social basis. And it's been one of the most rewarding aspects of my own career has been not just going in and doing surgery and taking care of my patients, which is rewarding on its own, but the ability to teach and put out more vascular surgeons who go out and then become lifelong friends. So keep your minds open. The networking is really important. And the networking, I do want to specify, is something that Koreans are notoriously terrible at. It's just culturally, culturally we're raised as you have to listen to your adults, right? Like the adults are right. What they tell you is fact. So you have to listen to the adults. At least that's how I was raised. I don't know if the new generation is a little bit different. I'll tell you some like my younger nephews certainly speak like they know way better than I do. But culturally, Koreans and Korean Americans, because of the way that we're brought up, our voices are pretty small. And I see this when we end up going to medical school. In medical school, it's not the people who are, when someone's teaching you something, say that I tell you about how a certain system works, and you're like, okay, that sounds great. All right, let me just take notes and let me memorize what they taught me. The people who stand out are the people who are like, why is it that way? And challenge kind of the thinking that currently exists. Challenge the way that your teachers are teaching you so that you force them to think a little bit more. Does that make sense? A little bit? Here's the difference. I go to Korea once a year to give a seminar. In the US, the people who are presenting are the residents and the students on a regular basis. The residents and students are the ones that are coming up to the microphone and asking the teachers questions, asking them to do a better job of explaining something because it wasn't clear how you explained it. In Korea, only the professors speak. The residents and the medical students almost don't even have a voice. They can't even come up to the mic, and when they do, they're extremely shy. And this is a cultural problem. It was one of the things that was the most difficult thing for me when I was going through medical school because I'm in the back, whatever they're teaching me, I think that I just got to memorize, and as long as I can speak that and regurgitate that on the test, that's what's going to help me go ahead. But that's not. That is not how you become more memorable, and that certainly is not how you end up standing out. Now, I know it's a little bit difficult to see because I can't shut up anymore. Now I just constantly talk and constantly complain and constantly argue with people. But find your voice. Don't be shy about it. And it is a little bit culturally, especially if you grew up in a household with pretty strict parents, I don't know if you guys know my mother. My mother was very strict when I was growing up. To this day, I'm very scared of her. She told me to come here and speak on a Sunday. I was like, yes, mother, I'll be right here. But especially if you grow up in a household that is a little bit more strict, your voice might not be there, but work on getting the voice out there. It takes practice, and I'll tell you that is probably one of the most difficult things that I had when I was going through. That's all I have to share, but I kind of want to open it up to a question Q&A session and see if you guys have any things that, I don't know, that you guys have any questions about.
Did you always want to be like in the medical field, or did you want something?
So no, in my initial passion, and it's hard to call it a passion, it's a little bit, was to be an iBanker, because iBanking, at the time, investment banking, because during my generation, they called it iBanker, and when I was in high school, it just sounded so cool. I thought that's how you become a multimillionaire, and that's what. So during college, actually, I did an internship at an investment firm in Manhattan for a summer. Walked away, and I hated it. I hated every moment of it, and it just felt like, for me, it wasn't it. It was right for a couple of my friends who ended up becoming investment bankers, but for me, it just wasn't. The biggest thing is, like, it's hard for you to know what you. This is why when I asked you, like, what do you want to be, you said I have no idea. Totally okay answer, but it does mean that you should be setting some plans to explore things that you want. You don't have to know what you want to do right now, but all right, then let me go set a plan to go and investigate this and find some things more out. And so I think that's the more important thing. Try to set up some opportunities.
You said that you were on like board for a lot of like interviewing people, or like
Oh yeah.
a residence or
Yeah. So.
admissions officer kind of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, like, what do you usually like? Because you must have seen a lot. So like anything that you remember still maybe.
Yeah. So I think her question was about. So I've interviewed at several different levels. I've interviewed candidates for college. I've interviewed candidates for medical school. I've interviewed currently now. We get 4 residents a year, and for those 4 spots, we interview about 15 people per spot, and then we end up selecting 4 residents out of them. So when we are interviewing, so the question was, what are we looking for when we interview? And I'll tell you, it's the same at every single step. College is a little bit different, because college in undergrad, I think it's unrealistic for people to say, like, hey, come in with a plan about what you want to do in your life already. I think that's a little bit unrealistic. But for medical school and for residency, it's the same. There has to be some reason. There has to be an idea for me to hear why you want to go into medicine. Like, it's not because my mom told me to go into medicine, or my dad is a doctor, so I also decided I'm going to be a doctor. Something more beyond that. Some reason that shows me that you've thought about it, that you've made it more personal, and you've come to the decision on your own. And then on top of that, you've done stuff to find out whether or not it's right for you. So if I look at your list of activities or whatever you've done over the summer, okay, here's someone who was interested in medicine. Here are the activities that they did in order to solidify their interest or find out more about it. For vascular surgery residency, it's the same thing. There's multiple specialties within medicine. I need to know why you want to do vascular surgery. If you ended up doing it because you had scores that look like you could match into the vascular surgery specialty, I'm never selecting that person. It doesn't matter what school they're from. It doesn't matter, how good they look on paper. We look for people who have a good, commitment to this field that they're actually applying into. So that's the biggest thing whenever I'm interviewing people. And also, like, the general things of able to make eye contact, shake hands like a normal human being, not like someone that I'm not worried is going to be like a complete sociopath.
And I'm wondering, like, because it must be pretty similar. Like, I know that reasons to become a doctor, like, if I wanted to be a PA, like, reasons to become a PA, like,
Yeah.
there's only, like, so many, right? So, like, is there anything that you've seen that you're like, oh, like, this stands out?
So it's not really so much that. It's the reason you're absolutely right. I want to help people. This is the most common one that people will actually have for going into any kind of medical field. But what did you do during your summers to confirm that this is the decision for you? I think that's the more important thing. You can say that you want to do something. You say that these are your passions, but what have you done on paper that show me that you've investigated these things, or even if it's not relevant to your field, what other experiences that you have that helped you rule out some of the other things that you don't want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other questions?
So you're married and you have 2 kids. How do you balance work and your family? And I guess like a sub question of that is like, how do you and your wife work in partnership to like maintain that balance and to provide like that for your kids?
Yeah, so I got married late and I had kids late. So I'm 42 now with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. 힘들어. It's so hard. It's so hard. But I'll tell you, it's life has changed drastically and priorities change, I think. So I was 33 when I finished my residency program, and then I was 38 when we had our first kid. So for the first 5 years, I lived in the hospital. There was nothing else. My only priority was my practice. My lifestyle was horrible, but it's what I enjoyed at the time, and that was my primary focus. And I essentially lived in the hospital. Got married, still kind of lived in the hospital, but my wife was okay with that because when we met, that's kind of the life I was living, and that's what she was accustomed to. And then now we have kids, and that kids changed my entire view of the world. You know, it's in addition to me being out and helping patients and helping and teaching residents, more importantly, I think my role is also being at home as a father, you know, and trying not to be an absentee parent. Now it's interesting because like that's a generational difference. Like when I was growing up, my parents immigrated from Korea to here, and they were working 7 till 7 every single day. Like even from when I was in 2nd grade, my brother and I were at home while my parents were at work, trying to make sure that they were able to get us through. And nothing but the most love and respect for my parents because of that. My dad was a parent who tells me that he has never changed a diaper, ever. He doesn't remember how me and my brother grew up, but I've changed 2,000 diapers. I feel like a day, you know, like they're endless diapers. It's a different generation of parents where like now both women and like my mother was a stay-at-home mom, which was like the predominant trend back then. This generation, both men and women work. Mothers work, fathers work. So both partners have to essentially become a team to make sure that you take care of the kids and find time for both people to do things. So my priorities changed as soon as my daughters were born. I spent much less time in the hospital. Whenever I'm done in the hospital, I used to stick around and see where else I can go and help. But now I make sure I go home. I set clear boundaries on the weekends. That's family time. I don't touch that. You know, I don't do any kind of social activities outside of that. I don't do any kind of professional activities unless I have to, and then try to reserve that family time. And your priorities do change. Where you are in your career does dictate that a little bit. It would have been hard for me to do that in my earlier years in practice, but now I have some junior partners who can take up some of the work, so it's a little bit easier now. But it's also the best thing and the most difficult thing. I say this to people all the time. I shared all of those things about vascular surgery, and it's a tough specialty because like our patients are sick, our surgeries are challenging, and the patients sometimes do really poorly. But vascular surgery is much easier than taking care of the kids. The kids are unpredictable. Surgery is somewhat predictable. You know, you have an idea of how different things are going to behave, but man, kids are unpredictable.
I was gonna ask, what's your wife's job?
My wife is a HR director for L'Oreal. So, you know the company L'Oreal. I had no idea. I thought it was just like the one makeup company. L'Oreal has an umbrella of 140 different brands beneath them, and she is the HR director, which means her job is very interesting. She takes people who are doing internships out of college and business school, and has them rotate through different specialties within L'Oreal: marketing, HR, the finance department, and at the end of their rotation, she places them into a job at different places. So she's constantly interviewing in a similar way that I have, but it's really cool.
Are they still hiring interns?
They may be. So listen, if they are doing like some summer internships or something like this, by all means, next week we'll have my wife talk over here instead of me.
My
You know, absolutely network with my wife. She's also does like these speeches much better than I do, so she's very impressive.
I need her here right now. Actually, I need her on the phone right now.
Can I ask, how many of you guys think you want to go into medicine? Okay, cool. Do you guys know, for the ones who are in high school, do you guys have an idea what you guys want to study? Shout out some majors that you guys want to major in. What's your major?
I didn't want it, but I'm in bio right now.
Bio? Other majors that you guys are considering? Journalism? Very cool, very cool. Nice, math and education. What do you want to do with that? See, I love this kind of plan. In an idea, have an idea what you want to do, but be open to everything else that might happen. And that, once again, depends on who you meet, whether it's people older than you, younger than you, your professors, whoever it might be, keeping an open mind about where it's going to take you. So I typically like to have like a 1-year plan, 3-year plan, 5-year plan in my mind. And then depending on the different things that are happening in my life and different people I meet, I change them all the time, you know. But having some sort of direction and some sort of plan, I think, helps me at least organize my mind, but also be okay if the plan's going to change at any point. That's very cool. Some of my smartest friends were math majors. I could never, but that's really impressive. What do you want to do?
I want to be an architect.
Architect. That's pretty cool. See, how old are you? 12. What made you decide architect?
I was just like designing and like stuff like that.
So did you meet somebody who's an architect in your life?
At our school we had this thing where like this person came to like show their job and they were like an architect.
Yeah.
So like saw like what they did and I wanted to like do too.
So I think this is how a lot of people actually end up finding some specialties, because you have a chance encounter with somebody who's come in. So when we were talking about like having some sort of plan, you control your own actions and processes. It's easy for you to be no matter what stage you are, high school, college, middle school, it's easy for you to like just stay home and chill, right? Like, and do nothing. Which is okay. You need some moments to relax and unwind, but I do think that the best way to prepare for anything is go out and seek some of these experiences. Your colleges and schools will have career fairs and things like this. It might seem a little bit lame, but get your butt over there and actually learn and meet as many people as you can. And so at some point, something will click with you, and then you kind of start pursuing that, and it's okay. This is the last thing that I do want to say is, thank the Lord that we're all in the U.S., because I do think that education and things like this are second, third, and fourth opportunities in the U.S., which might not exist in Korea. So do you guys know this drama called Sky Castle? Yeah? So for the people who don't know about it, it's just, I don't know, I guess you guys are too young to watch it because I think people dying and everything too. But it's this very accurate drama, I'm told, about education in Korea, where parents are spending a ton of money to send their kids to a million hagwons with different private tutors and things like this, so that they can get into one of 3 colleges. In Korea, you have to be at 서울대학교, the Korean National University, 연서대, or 고려대. Like, there's 3 schools that SKY, S-K-Y, that's what they stand for. And if you go into these 3 schools, it opens up a million doors for you and a million opportunities, because those are the top schools in Korea, and all the people who are in the top working classes are within these schools. I'm happy to say that it's not like that in the U.S. No matter what college you go to, your doors are always open. When we talk about selecting people who come into our residency program, if anything, the person who went to like a small community school, a community medical school, but they worked their way up, got much more experiences, and has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder to show that they can actually survive and achieve what they want to achieve, we know that that person's going to come in and put in like 150% effort. We love taking students like that. People who are like college athletes who are accustomed to like waking up at 4 a.m. every day to go to their like, track workout before they ended up going to school. We love seeing that. The people who are kind of at the elite schools, by no means am I taking anything away from them. They're impressive. They got there by a certain way of getting certain grades. But if at the same time that person got to that school and then took the foot off the gas and they're like, I'm at Harvard, I am going to do whatever, I'm going to get everything that I want in my life, and they take the foot off the gas and kind of show that they don't have as many experiences or the same kind of effort that someone else does, yeah, that person is not someone that we look for, actually, in that kind of way. So no matter where you're in your life, just know that like no doors are ever closed. If anything, different doors will open for you. You might meet different people at the school that you ended up at that you never would have considered. If I went to Columbia, going back to it again, I have no idea what my specialty will be today. I guarantee you it won't be vascular surgery because there's no like world-renowned vascular surgeons at that hospital. So like it would be a completely different trajectory. So I'm very happy with how things ended up, and you just have to keep your eyes open. Is this enough? Is this good? Do I have to keep talking? Yeah.
I actually have one last
Sure.
question. Like, thinking about like changing plans and things like that. I have one like really like pressing question I have is like, how do you separate what you want from what the people around you want?
Specifically, when you say people around you.
It would definitely be my parents.
Yeah.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely mean one parent.
Yeah.
I definitely mean my mom.
Yeah. That's also a cultural thing. It's really interesting because I talk about this with my mother. I think our parents' generation came from a generation where there was like, you have to be within one of two career paths in order for you to succeed and have stability. Some of that comes from the fact that like, they may have encountered a life that was less stable, that they want to make sure that you end up on a path that is, right for you, that you feel like, they want to make sure that you can 먹고 살고, like without any kind of problem going forward and have some stability. You will be miserable if you end up doing something that you don't have a passion for. So we talk about all this, but in the same way, we see maybe about every medical school has about a 5% attrition rate. I mean, people quit in the middle of their training because they want to go do something else. I also don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It just means that someone at some point, maybe a little bit later than not, decided that it's not right for them and they changed their plan. There's no right answer for your situation, especially when it comes with your parents. Your parents' experience and knowledge for sure is valuable, and when they're sharing something with you, listen to it. But at the same time, then you got to do the right things of exploring whether or not it's right for you. Say that they want you to go into medicine, go get some medicine experiences and see if it's truly right for you or truly not. If at the end of it, you're miserable, you hate it, you definitely don't think it's right for you, you haven't made any kind of connections that's going to lead you in that direction, speak to your parents, be more open-minded about it. At the same time, look and explore some of the other fields that you want to consider and do it. I told you my first kind of summer experience was investment banking. I did a rotation at a law firm. I rotated with a computer tech company, like a bunch of different things that were not medicine related during
How
college.
did you get hired for those without any relation? Like, how did you get hired?
All with relations, so almost all with relations. If you go to like the your career services at your colleges or whatnot, they have a list of alumni who've gone into different kind of jobs, and then you just have to apply through them. That's kind of the way that I ended up getting through it. Yeah. So keep your mind open about different things and explore it. This is probably the other thing. When I look at applications for medical school or for residency, at the end of every experience, even if it's something that is in a field that you don't want it to be, you want it to tell some sort of story, I guess. Like you want it to have like some sort of, I did this experience, like for example, EMT, the emergency medical technicians. If you're going on these kind of rides, I look at the application from two different people. One person is like, I did EMT for 4 years. Sounds great, right? The other person's application is, I did EMT for 4 years. During those 4 years, I went on 196 rides, of which 20 of them required emergent surgery when patients went back. I learned this, this, and this from this experience. Even though it's the same exact experience, at the end of it, the second person has done a lot more reflection about what it's meant for them and what they were able to walk away from. So every experience that you do, try to make sure that you give yourself some thought about, why did I do the experience? What did I learn from the experience? And if at the end of the experience, this is why I decided this is not what I want to do, that's an absolutely valuable experience. The kind of ones that really fall flat are the ones that are just like, hey, I just did this for about 3 years. Like, are you guys part of like orchestras, bands, or something like this? Yeah. During the orchestra, I was part of the orchestra for 3 years. Okay, sounds great. In addition to that, we played at X number of concerts. This is how much practice I was able to put into. I started off as this chair, and I was able to climb up to this kind of chair. Having some more kind of organization and description of what that experience meant for you means so much more. So I think just keep that in mind as you guys are putting together your CVs.
Usually on a resume, do they put I learned blah 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 after what they did?
So different people do different things. Most of the time, the professional CVs that you're applying for a job, you don't have space for something like that. But when you're applying to medical school or something, or PA school, you have the ability to give you a little blur for you to fill out different things.
I have a question, kind of just about your lifestyle, life, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
over the years. Like you mentioned that you had an opportunity to go to Georgia and that door was closed and you didn't go, but what do you think is like some of the biggest benefits of having grown up near your family, like even as you start your own family?
I'm going to tell you the biggest benefit is when it's the weekend, you're like, Harmony, take care of me. It's the best, but no. It's different. It's been valuable for me. But also, I think family time is the best time. But also, this being said, I know there are people who live very far away from their family, so it's a little bit different. For me, throughout a lot of my life, probably ended up, and sons are the worst for this. I don't know how often Hain calls his parents, but right? So throughout when I was in medical school, residency and everything, even though my parents lived across the bridge in George Washington, you cross GWB, they're in Fort Lee, and I'm in Manhattan, we would see each other probably once every 6 months. And I was terrible about calling, mainly because I was just so focused on my career and this is what I want to do and things like this. That's how I lived my life until I got married, honestly. And then post-marriage, and I guess in my 40s is when I was like, family became the center focus again for my life at this point. So it's been a lot. Now I see them twice a week, on a regular basis because I got to drop off my daughter. So so it has changed for me a lot. Nothing replaces family. And family means different things. Your immediate core family, who your life partner is going to be with your kids, and then your grandparents are different. But, for me, family has been very important.
Can I ask health-related questions?
Of course.
So, what foods or what habits should you do to keep your arteries and blood vessels healthy?
Oh, yeah.
Ask the doctor.
So I normally charge for this advice. I'm kidding. Smoking's the worst, by not even close. The risk factor that's the worst is smoking. People ask me all the time, does that mean marijuana too? Yes, it means everything. Vaping, yes, they're all terrible. They build up. So the atherosclerosis and the blockages that we showed you, they build up in your body over 5 to 10 years, not 1 to 2. People who take care of their bodies, I know you guys feel indestructible right now, right? You guys are in your teens and 20s. Maybe some of you feel what you guys do to your body today is going to absolutely determine how you feel in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. So the smoking is the biggest one by far. And then the other foods, I don't want you to be absolutely obsessed with hey, let me look at the nutritional facts of everything that I eat. But typically salty diets increase your blood pressure a lot, and then things that are in high kind of saturated fats is in general really bad for you. But it's not just about what you eat, but it's also about activity level, exercise, and other kind of lifestyle as well. So people, I don't know if you guys are big computer gamers. Some of my unhealthiest friends are the ones that were like sitting in front of World of Warcraft throughout all of college, online poker nonstop with like hot pockets. That's all they ever ate. So that's like the worst lifestyle. So you want to be active. It's something that we genuinely do talk about. That we are a very like tech savvy world that's linked to like social media and things like this. The more that you're glued to like your computer and your phones, I do think that it takes away from your health a little bit more. There's a lot of studies nowadays that people who are you guys on like Instagram, TikTok? These are things that you guys are on? No? Okay. They are like notoriously terrible for the mental health for our youth. So if you can limit the number of hours you spend on it, the better it is. Mainly because like people fall into this trap of comparing your life to what you see on social media, and it is not. It's like you shouldn't do that.
How much time should you spend being active in a day?
As much as possible. As much as possible is good, but I mean like yeah.
And what symptoms should you look out for when you like I don't know high cholesterol or something like
Yeah, so I know once again this goes back to the fact that you guys feel like you're indestructible, but starting in your 30s, you should go to your primary care physician once a year to do your blood work. Probably in your 20s is a little early, but like there's an annual physical that you guys do in your schools, right? So continue to do that. Right now when you're in school, you guys are forced to do that because the school makes you do that, but starting in college, you don't have to. Like some people don't make you, and I don't think it's necessarily important in your 20s. But in your 30s, you should probably start. Hey, and I'm looking at you. As you get close, go to your primary care physician.
as you approach it imminently.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you should get your blood work done, and you should take care of your health because in the same way, it's very easy to ignore your own personal health until you feel really terrible. And by the time that you feel really terrible, it means that you've kind of let things go on pretty far.
What does feel terrible entail?
Yeah, so constant head. So my brother is a great example. He is 1 year younger than I am, and since college, he had pounding, terrible headaches, and he let that go on for like 3 years or so. And by the time that he finally went and saw a doctor, his blood pressure was constantly in the 180s on a regular basis. So he's been on a blood pressure medication since college, and it's helped kind of regulate that. So some of it's like what runs in your family.
Shouldn't you check in your 20s as well?
I mean, so pay attention to your body, and like don't just ignore it. And then if something is bothering you, go take care of yourself.
What about those like random pains you get and then they just disappear?
Yeah, you sound like a 40-year-old. It's hard to know. I mean, so the more active you are, you get like musculoskeletal pain here or there. But if it's recurrent, happening on a constant basis, go get it checked out.
It's nothing about like question, but what? It's about application for med school. Is it like really like harm you when you include like faith wise like including like about my faith or like because I want to be a like medical missionary, but I like many people told me that like it's really it can harm me if I include about like why do I want to be a doctor, like if it's missionary, like I don't know.
No, I understand what you're saying. If they're saying like this is my ultimate goal and this is what I want to do, I want to spread the gospel by becoming a medical missionary. Like, is that something that you should put? I gotta tell you, it's. Is it harmful? Not really, but the schools are also thinking about it from a different perspective, right? So whenever I'm looking at, in the same way that you guys, when you put in your application, you're trying to look as good as possible to the school. the school and the programs that you apply to are also thinking, are we the right school for this person? Like, do we have the kind of means to be able to, help you get to your goal? So say that it's a school that is predominantly, there's a lot of like Jewish-based schools, like, and like you're talking about becoming like a Christian missionary. One of the things, it's not that they're saying like, I can't believe it. This is what they want to do. This is not what we need in our school. It's actually the other way. It's a little bit of like, does our school have the ability to help her get to her goal? Like, do we have the kind of things that we have? So I don't want to say like, put that in, it's not going to harm you, but also you have to understand when you're applying to a specific program, you have to know about that program and, does this jive with the mission of that school itself? Do they have the resources for it? If it doesn't mean that don't apply to school, but you might want to change what your application says a little bit based on it, because once again, you're trying to appeal to whether or not the services that they have to see if you can get in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever. Go ahead.
So I actually do eat a lot of salty.
She's
worried.
She saw those pictures and she got worried.
Any foods that can reverse the negative effects? Vegetables.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so you should never think of it as like a binary. I had salt, so I'm screwed. It's not like that. It's a scale. So just start eating less salty food. It's not like some irreversible damage has been done to your body because you ate some salty food.
Is there any like foods, like specific food? Yeah, like superfoods that like specifically target like blood.
No, it's just food, Hitch. It's not a robot.
Yeah, so not really. So people talk about like antioxidants and things like this, but honestly, just stop eating so much salty food. Yeah. What were you saying?
So I was thinking about trying to become like, let's say, a physician assistant. I was wondering do you have because like you probably work with people like that or.
Great specialty. So I'll tell you, it shortens your training a lot. So I think you can do, the PA schools nowadays are 4 years, I think, still 3 years or 4 years, something like that. But you can have a very productive, career that is within the PA specialty. And within the PA world, you can specialize into different tracks: surgery, medical. You can end up becoming an anesthetist, like so different kind of paths. You just have to kind of think about like, in the same way, like, have a bigger plan than I want to be a PA. I want to be a PA to do X, Y, and Z afterwards and have a little bit more idea about that.
Do you have any do you know any cons in becoming maybe a PA versus another medical?
So the biggest con for being a PA is probably that you don't necessarily have like patients of your own. You're always tied to a physician that you have, that you're seeing patients with. But this being said, the world is changing a lot for that. Nurse practitioners, wonderful field. PAs are getting a lot more independence in today's healthcare world, so I think their responsibilities are growing more and more, and by the time that you're finishing, probably nurse practitioners and PAs are going to be doing a lot more than they are currently. PA is like a physician's assistant, is like by the official term, but like they're moving that towards more physician's associate, or people who are able to independently see patients as well.
I don't know if this is like a bad question, but what's the healthy level of sodium?
How salty do you eat? Are you like ramyeon? Like,
I just like, I really like salt and like oily stuff. You just eat like once like if I like see like the sodium like what's
It comes with a percentage. It comes with a
No, I
percentage.
know, but like what percentage is like
No, the
how much
percentage.
serving?
100 is like the max you can do a day, right? So just add up everything you eat and see does it pass 100, bro.
No, but like
do it the other way, actually. So rather than looking at every single, looking
Common sense, I fear.
looking at every single, rather than looking at every nutritional chart, look at it the other way. If you are really worried, do you have a blood pressure cuff at home? They're like $20 on Amazon.
I do, because
Yeah.
Oma needed to use one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, I got my blood pressure done really recently because I had to go to paperwork. But I forgot what it was. Eat vegetables.
So these are typically what we say. So 120 over 80 is the perfect number, right? 120 over 80 is a perfect number. Just measure it a couple times, measure it in the morning, measure it at night, and do it like every day. Keep a little notebook and then keep a chart and then see how you're doing. If it looks like it's going too high, then cut back on general sodium intake that you have. If it's low, then you're okay. Keep on going. Good.
Any advices for low blood pressure?
Eat some salt. No. Yeah, low blood pressure is, my wife is extremely low blood pressure all the time, to the point where like she has to take almost salt tabs, and so they do that for certain patients. It's not really, the biggest thing is just stay very hydrated and make sure that you don't become dehydrated. That must be nice. That must be nice. I'm always high strung, high blood pressure. My brother too. Yeah, so I did a lot of those activities, but I will tell you, this is when we go back, and this is the plan that I set, right? I'm like, I'm gonna do this internship over the summer. I worked in a chemistry lab, so I did a lot of research. So I'm gonna do research, then I would check the research box, I would check my volunteer box, I would check this box, and that's how I'm gonna look good for medical school. I don't think it's that linear, actually. So it's, if you have an idea of if you want to participate in something, it's sometimes difficult to force it. Where like if you haven't had a network or an opportunity to get into something like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to be like, I'm going to go do an EMT school. Do you have any connections to someone who has a volunteer corps that you can get into? Yeah, so it's a little bit challenging. So the first step, rather than even going forward with it, is meet people there first. Get to know people who are doing the kind of work that you want to do currently. Get their advice and get their support for you to go into it. Because then it's not just you independently trying to force your way into something, but you have someone else's buy-in to help you get into that. So rather than like just making your own checklist of what you want to do, I would say try to meet the people who are doing the activities that you would like to do first, get their advice, and try to get that support to go in. Okay? And if you don't have a way to like connect with some people like that, then just ask some people around you. Like you want to do like medical shadowing or something like this, like I think you have plenty of people who are in the hospital, even at this church, so myself included, so you can reach out to that. So it's interesting because I don't think I thought about that when I was going through the path. I think I only see that when I look backwards a little bit. And I think this is where I think with a little bit of maturity is you feel constantly disappointed at times when you're trying to do something and it's not necessarily going according to plan. But now I think I ingest that information a little bit differently. It's not necessarily so much that like, you hear about calling and things like this. For me, it was never like it didn't feel like this is God's calling for me and this is how I'm going to end up in the field. Now I think I accept it a little bit more as things are working out in a certain way because I believe that God has a certain plan for me now. So this is why for me, my approach, it's always I'm going to prepare to the best of my ability, but then accept the results as they come. For the career path, I don't know. I think it's just maybe once again, it wasn't so much that I was thinking about it from a faith perspective, but my interests and my experiences with the people that I met was just not as good in some of the other fields. And I do feel like that's the way that God kind of shapes, what field that you're going to go into. Say that you want to do an EMT thing over the summer, but like if you don't meet anybody that's in the field and the doors don't open for you, that might not be the way that the plan is for your life, and you just have to be okay with that, and pivot to something else.
I first want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
You're welcome.
A question that I have is, you mentioned that you married late, and I was wondering if that was by any chance by choice, and if it was, do you think that marrying late helped you develop your career more, or if going back, do you think you would have married a bit earlier? Just curious to know more about that perspective.
Yeah, I was very immature until I was 35. So there was that. I almost got married twice, but somehow in the very last, right before marriage, it just didn't work out. For the single most important decision in your life, aside more so than I think what your career path is I think who your spouse is going to be. I think that is probably that's the person you're spending all of your life with. That's the person who you're going to raise your kids with. So it's a decision I think you take a little bit more seriously, but it's also the most weird decision. I think you guys all have your 이상형. This is like, my goodness, I want my spouse to look like this. This is the woman that I'm attracted to, or whatever. The person that you end up with is like, as long as you, in the same way that we talk about how God plans different things for you, God has a spouse that's out for you. So I think for me, it happened late. I have plenty of friends who got married early and they were happy with it. I will tell you that in my own personal opinion, evaluating my own self, if I got married early, I think it probably would have been a lot harder, because I was just not in a completely different mental space than where I am currently. Very personal question, but it depends on you as an individual. If it's the right person for you, it's the right person for you. But once again, this is kind of like, listen to some people around you, not saying that other people should influence whether or not, you get married to someone or not. But I think, kind of rely on your network of people that you trust and that you really rely on to also get some advice from them about this. The single most important decision in your life.
How did you and your wife go about the decision of both of you working and raising two really young kids? Did you talk about one person doing stay-at-home situation? What are the pros and cons of both parents working?
Yeah, it's the traditional household has been like the man works and the woman stays at home, right? Your generation is different. And it varies from household to household, like who is the breadwinner, who makes more money, and things like this. But at the end of the day, it has to be a decision that comes according to the team. For my wife, we had this conversation. She's an MBA. She has this position at L'Oreal. She's been climbing the corporate ladder. She's got an incredible network with opportunities to continue to grow. She had to battle a lot more with the guilt than I did, and I feel terrible about this, but she battled this guilt between, I want to be a mom who's present for my kids all the time, but I have also worked my entire career to get to a certain level. So in the beginning, she, I think, had a personal battle about whether or not she goes to work or she does not. My role in that is to be supportive of what her decision is, because it's not a decision that I can make for her. I don't think it's right for me to say, you got to go to work, or I don't think it's right for me to say, quit your job and stay at home. So luckily we had the ability to kind of have that conversation, and then she decided that she wanted to continue going back to work, but at the same time, she definitely set some limits about what she does. She used to travel a lot for work. She's cut that down drastically. She used to work into the evening. When she comes home from job, she will continue to do it. She's cut that out completely. It might mean that her progress and her ability to continue to climb in the corporate ladder might be a little bit less than it was before, but it was important for her. So she made some of those kind of changes. If she had decided that she wants to stay at home, I would have been supportive of that too. It's a personal decision. And as long as you have a partner that is understanding of that, I think that's the best.
So street evangelism, right? You can like go, hey, like believe in Jesus, right? So if you had any like experience or testimonies of like when you had a chance to like share your faith with like coworkers, or basically like the question is like what do you think is the most important thing, like having that identity of man of faith being in that workplace? If that makes sense.
It does, and I'll tell you that once again, it's like you're right in terms of going out and being evangelical at the workplace. I certainly am not that, and I haven't been, but like knowing that you're a Christian at the job, you, I think, you have like almost a responsibility to show up and carry yourself a certain way. And the way that it comes across a lot is actually when you have really bad outcomes. Actually, when patients are doing poorly, when patients' family members, like the most difficult discussion that we have is to go out from surgery and tell someone's family that the surgery did not go well, and the chances are your family member's not going to make it. This is a conversation that sadly that is part of my job that happens all the time. And during those moments, I've encountered so many different ways that have gone about it. Patients who are Christian or patients who are not Christian, whatever it might be. I've been raised as a Christian my entire life. My father's a pastor, and we share some of these things in those moments, and we have opportunities to pray together as a family, even with patients like that. My coworkers are there during that time. My residents are there following me, and they're part of that room, and they see some of the faith that comes into it. I think I try to carry myself in just that kind of way, and then sometimes we discuss faith afterwards. Interestingly enough, out of that picture that I showed you at the end of the residents, the Korean males, there's two currently besides me that are in our residency program. They were all youth group presidents and former praise band leaders. It's a little bit bizarre, but that's how, maybe it's my own personal bias as who I select into our residency program, but there are people like that at our residency program, and I think rather than kind of openly sharing all the time, which I think you just try to live that on a day-to-day basis with respect, and you can see how it comes into play in certain difficult situations. Probably should do a better job, but yeah, that's what I think.
Have you seen the opposite case of like a person is like having open, I don't know, like public faith, I'll say, but like that is giving like a negative influence.
So it's interesting because the answer is yes. So there is a surgeon who goes on a lot of like medical mission trips, right? We know that. He makes it known. He gives a lot of presentations about it. But at the same time, at the hospital, he is considered to be not the best surgeon. You know what I mean? So I think our job is to be technically and like within the world that you exist in, do that job to the best of your ability first, and I think that ends up becoming a better, because it's almost like when the colleagues see that, they're all like, oh, those poor patients, because like even though you're meaning well and you're going on these medical missions, when your own skill level at your own job, people perceive that as being like not that great, it comes across a little bit worse for that reason. So I think in the workplace, do the best you can in your job, build up a reputation, be respected by your peers, and then the faith message, I think, goes a much longer way. If it's a much more of a positive influence in that world.
Last question for me. So now you're in your like early 40s.
Mhm.
That means you
Thank you. Early 40s, guys. Early 40s.
looks early, middle 30s. So you're a man who passed your teen, 20s, and 30s.
Yeah.
So by those like time frames, do you have like a general advices of life for each time period, or even one piercing advice for all the ages?
Yeah. It goes by really, really, really fast. And then every moment that you're living is like, enjoy it. Don't I think a lot of times when we are, especially the planners who are in the room, you feel like you put your life on hold so that you can get to your final destination, but also you have to enjoy that life that you're living at that moment. Try to make the most of it. And it doesn't mean, just because you're studying a lot, doesn't mean that you can't enjoy your life. Find the things and find time for you to do the things that are important for you. My heart goes out to, like, for example, some of my friends' kids in Korea, right? So like they spent their entire teens where they felt like they didn't do anything except just study so that they can get to a certain goal, right? And they feel like they missed out on a big portion of their life because their entire life was defined by this one activity. Don't do that. So I think enjoy the life that you're living at that point. Even if you feel like you've kind of, haven't enjoyed life up till this point, maybe make sure that you make space for you to actually experience the life that you're living at that moment. You never know. It's I don't want to sound morbid, but like all kinds of things happen health-wise. People get sick. People have freak accidents, and waiting for your life to start until you get to your goal, I think, is the biggest mistake. You have to enjoy the life you're living at the moment. Every year, in my 20s, I was very happy to be in my 20s. 30s, I was very happy to be in my 30s. Early 40s, very happy in my early 40s. Life is actually really phenomenal. I feel very blessed for that. Okay? All right, well, thank you. My email, I'll give it to Hayne later. Feel free to shoot me an email if anything. I'll talk to my wife about coming and talking here at some point if that's going to be a valuable experience. Thanks for your attention.
All right, so why don't we give another round of applause to our big brother? Yeah, I guess the time is over, so let me just pray and close the meeting. Father God, thank you so much for this time that we get to just meet our brother in Christ, just listening to how he had lived his life and how God, you led him in a way that was noticeable and not noticeable. So Father, whatever nuggets that we got out of this time, as we just get it inside our hearts and as you just carry it home, just like continue speaking to us, God. Continue speaking to us of your goodness, your faithfulness, and how your plans are good, and how we must be excited for our life because you are excited for our life, God. Thank you, Father, for this time. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you.